Okay. Yeah. Topic for today is optimizing business process and how do we integrate AI and ML with into any business process. And my name is Ashwin Pingali. I'm the CTO of Decision Products. I have 22 years of experience in enterprise software implementations and digital transformation. The last 5 years, I have been working in machine learning, graph database, process mining, and I have certifications in various cloud technologies, and I'm also an AWS architect. I have a track record of delivering innovative solutions that are catered to a particular business process and needs, and I want to share my experiences with you through this presentation. The first thing that I would like to state is data alone cannot create any kind of business impact, but actions and decisions can create an impact. And what we are going to look at is the AI and ML is more like a tool that's in search of a problem. And all the data science teams are looking for is okay, give me a business problem where I can implement an AI and ML solution. So we are always have a tool which is the AI and ML toolkit, and how do I apply it to a business problem? And today's discussion is about how we go about doing that. To create the most impact, we need to make sure that the project, that the AI and ML project, is geared towards a decision or an action that can impact or improve the process performance of a critical business process. It could be a critical business process, it could be a business process that's in line for delivering some kind of value. So, how do we go about doing this? This is easier said than done. And we want to find a use case for AI and ML, and we want to optimize the business process. And this is the trouble that we always get into when we go into any business situation. The first thing is we don't understand the process. And in many cases, the process understanding is fragmented between several business stakeholders. So to get a picture of the actual process is difficult. And to get a picture of the process performance is fragmented to at best. And to identify a way to optimize or improve this business process is even more difficult. So what we are going to do is we are going to, in this presentation, we'll look at, and I'll also actually give you a demo of how this can be done to walk into any business scenario and try to gain an understanding of the business process, a shared understanding, I would say, along with the business stakeholders, come to a joint decision on what a process metric would be, and then from there identify some decision triggers. So we'll go through this process one step at a time. So the first thing is, how can I use my process mining or AI toolkits? One of the toolkit that we are going to look at today is discovering a process. And we want to understand the process, means we have to actually discover this process. And this has to be done in an algorithmic fashion from the underlying data that is being generated from the various information systems that that the organization is using. This could be a ERP system, this could be a CRM system, this could be a supply planning system, an inventory management system, or it could be all of them. If you're looking at an end-to-end process, then you might want to gather data from multiple systems. But if your ambition is curtailed and you're looking at tuning a particular sub-process within the company, then you can only look at the process data from one particular division or department of the organization. So how do we go about doing this? The first thing what we do is we have to gather the event data. So every organization, every process has a certain set of events. And these events could be, in the case of a CRM system, it could be somebody calling in and expressing an interest, and we'll call that a lead. So a lead got generated uh, based on a call that came in to the company. And from that interest was responded with a code. So a code got created against that interest. And the code was accepted by the customer and converted into an order. And now the lead is now a customer. The order has been created, and then there is an order creation event. And there is, once the order gets created, it goes to the shipping, the order gets shipped, and there's a shipping event, and there's an invoice that gets sent out, there's an invoicing event, and the customer makes a payment, there's a payment event, and the customer gives a review about the product, there is a review event. So you can have all sorts of events that are being collected across the organization, either in the CRM system for the quoting events, for the lead generation events, and for the ordering events will be in the ERP system and the shipping systems. And you also will have the financial systems will be recording the invoice creation, etc. So when we have these events are all related to a particular entity that could be transforming itself over time. So the lead became a quote, the quote became a order became an invoice, the invoice became a cash, we are converted into cash. So you're seeing the event transforming, or it's over the time into something different and creating value. So that transformation, that process is what we want to actually see in action. So we want to understand that process, how it is happening. So we can take this event data and we'll stitch it together, and we'll in a short in a couple of minutes I'll show you how that can be done. And once we stitch this event data and we build a process map, then we actually have a baseline of the process performance. And this is the most important, because this is the KPI that we want to actually have a shared understanding with the business teams to say, okay, this is how your process is performing. Would you agree with it? And what do you think the process performance should be? And in my experience, a lot of times, this is the step where a lot of aha moments are generated. When we see the process, there is a lot of room for improvement, even without AI or ML, but in a highly digitized process where the process is actually happening completely in the digital realm, AI and ML is probably extremely important to create any kind of intervention in that process. And once we have the process map, and once we want to identify the process bottlenecks. And what we can do is we can play out this process just like a video. We want to understand how this process performed over time. So we want to see this process and see how it is being performing, and then understand, okay, where the bottlenecks are, where is the process getting bogged down. And this tells us, okay, how do I improve this process? And once we have this information, once we know the process performance, once we understand the process bottlenecks, then that is the step when we create what we call the decision triggers. The decision triggers will allow us to create actions that would help us improve the process performance. So let's look at some event data here. And what you're seeing here is a event data for a purchasing process. So on the left-hand side, you can see that there is a case. The case has an identifier. And so you can see that the case had multiple events. So a single purchase requisition was created at some point of time, and it took some time to create that purchase requisition. So you can see the start time and then the end time. And you also can see who created that purchase requisition, and you also can see their role. And the next event that happened for the same case is an analyzed purchase requisition. And here you're seeing again a start time and an end time. And you're seeing a series of events. This information can be procured from any ERP system, and this particular uh, you know sanitized data set that you're seeing is coming from a ERP system from SAP. Then what we do is we can actually automatically convert this data into a mind process map. And I'll take you through that in a short while. But what you're seeing here is the actual process map and how that process is actually looking. And this process map, then we can actually play it out. And I'm going to just play this. And this is a process play out where we are seeing some information where the time is actually changing and you're seeing the process moving over time. Now let's look at this in action with the real data. And I'm going to actually go back and I'm going to show you the same data set that we talked about. So we have this case, we have an activity, we have some time, a start time, we have an end time, we have a resource, we have a role. We can have a whole set of other information. And then I can import this data. And this data gives me a process map. This is actually a lot better than if I go and ask customers what their process looks like. And in most cases, they will tell me a process that is the normal case. That is the what we call the dominant variant of the process. So what you see here is the dominant variant, which is the common knowledge of the process. But when we look at all the activities, then what you see is you see that the process has some variations and it has a different set of steps here. And these activities are still not complete because you can see that there are all these numbers are not adding up. You have 11 coming in, 8 going out. So we can actually add all the paths and that will give you a process map that shows you all of this different paths. And we can actually look at this a little bit more closely and look at some of the statistics about the data. So I talked about understanding the process performance. And one of the process performance in many situations is the duration a particular case takes to transform completely from end to end. And you want to understand whether it is taking 2 days, 3 days, 4 days for a code to get converted into, say, an order or a code to get converted into cash. And that information is very, very valuable because if you can change this cycle time, you can actually make a very big impact on the customer's business itself. And so, for example, in one of our situations, by changing the amount of time a code took for approval by half a day, the result was a 8 to 9 million, nine figure difference in the revenue. And so that's the kind of goals that you can set strategically to the team to identify, okay, this is these are the bottlenecks. Let's try and reduce this time that we are taking for, in this case, I can see that most of them are taking around 17 days. And you can see this here, the median case is around 11 days. But you also see that the mean case is 21.5. What you see here is there are a lot of cases that are outliers. And that's something that we will come back a little later. The other part, what you're looking at is each of this case is actually a graph or a sequence of events. And you can see some variants that have been grouped together. And what you can see here is all these variants have the same set of steps. So you can see that all these variants have the same exact set of steps, 18 steps. And the variant 2 will have 17 steps. Variant 3 has only 2 steps, so it's an incomplete process. Variant 4 has 4 steps, etc. So from here, what we can do is we can actually look at the data and we can figure out where the bottleneck is. And you can see that this dark edges, this graph has some dark edges, and this is telling us how how much time this process is getting bogged down here, and you can see that these are the tick arrows. And we also can look at what we call as a performance characteristic of this, and this tells us how long an activity is taking and how much wait time is there. So if you want to improve the process, you might want to reduce the wait times. Maybe you want to reduce the activity times. Depends on the process. As long as we can identify what that is, we can actually get we can create a very good AI or ML project that can be used to that can be the scope of that project and the target of that project. So here you can see what is the median duration, we can see the max duration, etc. And this gives us. But most customers, what I have seen, the most important thing here is we can actually look at all those long running cases where there is a 50% of the cases that is giving us a lot of heartache. And let us say these are the long running cases. And if you create this, you can see that this total duration is 11 years. And if you see the older one, that was 12 years. So out of the 15% of the cases are taking 90% of the time. So you can actually understand that most of the wait time is for these long running cases. And the whole objective of this process mapping exercise is to make sure that we have a common understanding with the business, create a strategic goal that's in line with the business goals, and it also can be measured, it is measured, and we can have a before and after measurement of the same goal using the same tool. So what you're doing here right now is a baseline of that process, and we can also play this out. And this is the process playout where we can actually see how this process is happening over time. And I can actually do this, and I'm going to fast forward this a little bit so that you can see how the process are moving through over time, how each case is actually moving through each step of the process. And getting clogged up here, so you can see that this is where there's a lot of clogging up, and we can understand, okay, that's where our impact should be. This could be a AI ML use case, or this could be a training use case if it's a manual process. But if it is a digitized process, and let us say we are actually seeing this happen in an online activity, then this is some kind of a customer agony that the customer is facing that is kind of completely unobserved. And so you want AI interventions here because you don't want customers to move away from your website or move out of a purchasing process without because of some problem with your software. So those are the kind of things that you want to be on the lookout for and get a intervention done quickly. The other part I would like to show you here is anomalies are one of the most common things that we actually look for. And in this purchasing process, we see an anomaly here where you can see that invoices that are sent are most of them have to go through a release process. And I'm not showing you but a different graph, which is the what should be the on record process, and every invoice should be released before it can get paid. And you can see that there are 10 invoices that have been sent automatically to the supplier for payment, and we can actually filter this and we can label this as some ground truth to identify for future for external extra investigation, and hope that we can actually find these cases as they occur in the future. So those are the kind of things that we can actually do by using process mining, by creating our set of interventions as a decision trigger within the process so that we can achieve the most bang for the buck and give the business customers, the highest value. That's the end of my presentation. I just wanted to see there was any questions, and I wanted to take some questions here.